Welcome to Live from Mars, your go-to pop music podcast. Each week we go through the latest and greatest new music releases and what's happening in the music industry, what's the latest in pop culture, pop music news. My name is Alex. You may also know me as Mars from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, this podcast, wherever you have found me, welcome. And today's episode is going to be a good one because there is so much that has happened in the last week, 2 weeks. I took last week off, so this week is a jam-packed episode. We have a lot to get through. We're going to kick things off going through the best of this week's New Music Friday. Then we're going to dive deep into what's happening in the music world right now. There's a ton to go through between Glastonbury, Lorde's new album, rumors of Olivia Rodrigo's third project, Taylor Swift surprise performing in Nashville, Beyoncé almost falling out of a floating car at her Cowboy Carter tour. There's a ton to get into, but first, if you are not already following and subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcast provider, that would mean the absolute world to me, so that way you can be notified of every new episode when they go live each Monday. And if you want to continue talking all things pop music with me and a bunch of others who love music the same way you and I do, come join my Instagram broadcast channel. We have a really great community growing over there. I'll send over updates when new music is being announced, if a new video goes live, each new podcast episode, some fun polls, quizzes, everything in there. So come join the fun. And without any further ado, let's talk new music. So I went through this week's New Music Friday, so you don't have to. Let's go through my 3 biggest releases of the week. And before I reveal my 3 choices for this week, if you are not already following on Spotify, I have an entire playlist called Life on Mars, because consistent branding is everything to me. That is where I go through every single week's New Music Friday playlist and pull out the ones that I think I like the most, also what I think you guys would like the most. So if you're not already following that playlist, I refresh it every single week, so you can get all of these songs and plenty more there. Number 1 has to go to the biggest music release this week. It is Lorde's brand new album, Virgin. I posted my full reaction to every song on the Virgin album over on YouTube, so you can go check that out if you're interested. And I did want to ask you guys, for those of you who are tuning in and watching the reactions, obviously because they're going up on YouTube, I have to chop up the footage a really good amount because otherwise it gets flagged for copyright and the video can't be posted. So my question for you guys is, if you were interested in seeing that full clip, that full video of the entire reaction that is not cut down for YouTube, if that's something you guys would want to have more of and see, where you think I should be posting it, where it can live as a full thing outside of YouTube. So if you are somebody who would like to see that, make sure you drop a comment on a recent video, on this podcast, wherever. That way I can see it, get a gauge of what the interest is, and I can start putting them up if you guys want them. Lorde Virgin, her 4th studio album. This is her first new album since 2021's Solar Power. Lorde has been doing this every 4-year new album thing, which I actually really like, because if you think about it, a lot of our lives are lived in kind of 4-year chunks for a specific part of life, where you go through high school being 4 years, and then college is 4 years. And then after being in these 4-year regimented time blocks, I remember when I was 4 years out of college, I remember having this itch for change, itch for something new. And ironically, that I'm realizing now, that's actually when I started really posting on TikTok and, getting in front of the camera and starting up this brand more intensely. So yeah, we're coming up on that 4-year chunk for me next year. So who knows what's going to happen then. But yes, Lorde, Virgin, album. Album is phenomenal. Album is incredible. I gave my full in-depth first impression review on Thursday when the album was dropping. And since I've had the weekend to kind of sit with the project, listen to it a few more times, be able to really firmly say what I think about it now, is that I don't disagree with what I said when I first posted the reaction. Honestly, this album is aging really well for me over this past weekend. This album I definitely had my doubts about, to be honest, because of what was that dropping and what was that being the lead single from the project, sounding very similar in ways to Melodrama, to Pure Heroin. It didn't necessarily offer me something so shiny new, which after 4 years and Lorde putting the days of Solar Power beachiness behind her, I was looking for something fresh and exciting and different and bolder than what I got from what was that. But honestly, now hearing what was that in the context of the album, it makes a ton of sense why it was chosen as the lead single. So that one has grown on me a bit more. Man of the Year, I really enjoyed, but it ended way too soon. As soon as it started to take off, it was over. And that just left such a bad taste in my mouth So when Hammer dropped, I honestly wasn't running to go listen to it because I had been a little disappointed by What Was That, a little disappointed in the ending of Man of the Year, but let me tell you, this album is insane. This album is incredible. So how can I best describe this album? How can I best lay out what Virgin entails if you're hitting play on it for the first time? If you listened to Solar Power, this album could not be more of an opposite album than Solar Power. This album is a complete 180 from Solar Power. Solar Power was no guardrails, no training wheels, just expansive and really long, no restrictions put on songwriting, on melody, and it didn't have so many like hooky melodies, and that's part of why it didn't do so well commercially. And fans weren't really so here for it either, because coming from pure Heroin and coming from Melodrama, where these albums were just so immaculately produced, her signature style became so popular that other artists are now emulating her style, and she kind of abandoned it entirely for Solar Power. So I personally am not a Solar Power fan. I think I returned to maybe The Path, California, Secret from a Girl, Mood Ring once a year. You know, this isn't an album I'm returning to. I sold my copy of it on vinyl. I kind of parted ways with Solar Power. So I personally am thrilled to have this version of Lorde back. And yeah, so where Solar Power was so beyond just no restrictions, go for anything, Virgin is concise and powerful and bold. Where Solar Power gave every song the space to kind of meander and discover itself from within, Virgin knows exactly what it's doing. Virgin is incredibly sure of itself, despite how deeply personal and vulnerable Lorde is being in these songs. The writing here is stripped right out of her diary. Some of the things that she's singing about are genuinely uncomfortable to listen to. This album is all about self-discovery. It is about Lorde coming to terms with her gender identity, body dysmorphia, working through an eating disorder, working through issues of growing up with her parents and always wanting to be the best for them. But she talks about that on the song Favorite Daughter, which is a highlight on the record. It's so refreshing to hear this kind of song from an artist who is part elusive, part right up front in your face with her music. And it's ironic as I'm listening to myself talk about the difference between Solar Power and Virgin. Interestingly, Virgin is way more comfortable with silence and using instrumentation or vocals or some kind of production choice only when it's needed. Lorde's voice is front and center in this. It purposely is leaving you as the listener uncomfortable with silence, to leave you in a state of where you don't know where the project is going to go, where a song can start off in one way and completely transform into another, the way that David does. David is my favorite song on this album. I think it is incredibly produced. It's very Bon Iver, which makes sense because Jimmy Stack, who's a producer on Virgin, he produced Bon Iver's most recent record, Sable Fable, and Bon Iver himself actually plays on these songs too, so you're very much getting that Bon Iver Lorde crossover that I don't know how many people actually thought they needed, but now realize how great it is to have it. More than anything, Virgin is Lorde being a capital A artist. She is not here to create this hugely commercially successful record the way that maybe Pure Heroin leaned a little bit more, even though Pure Heroin was kind of the antithesis of what was working in pop music back in 2013. This album is not filled with hit single after hit single after hit single. This album is made to be listened to as an album. It's way more an art statement than a radio success guaranteer, and Lorde hasn't really ever been interested in such commercial success. I mean, Pure Heroin did incredibly well because it was fresh and exciting, but Melodrama was never this like commercial runaway smash hit. And then the same thing with Solar Power, definitely not a commercial smash hit, no. What Was That is doing pretty well as a single, but I don't think you're gonna see another hit single off of this album. The lack of commercial viability of Virgin comes down to its production choices. It leans way more industrial, way more synth heavy, way more grungy and filthy and rough as nails than anything Lorde has really done before. Every song on this project feels like there is some sense of urgency here, whether it's an emotional sense of urgency or a physical sense of urgency. All of that is felt, whereas Solar Power had none of that. But the phrase that I used in my initial review that I keep coming back to is that it simultaneously feels like Lorde is having a breakdown and a breakthrough on this album, and that is the thesis statement of Virgin. Taking a look now at my song-by-song notes, some highlights I want to call out for you guys is the opener, Hammer. I absolutely loved this one, not only as an opener, but also just the song itself. It feels like a natural progression for Lorde, coming really from Melodrama to this project. It feels like a natural bridge between the two projects. really because of that suspense and like the cathartic release that you get on a moment like Ribs off of Pure Heroin or Supercut off of Melodrama. Hammer has that same quality. Shapeshifter, which is the first new song on this project, absolutely stunned by the songwriting. I thought it was so well done. The lyrics in the chorus, the melody in the chorus, talking about how she's like a fruit that leaves behind a stain. I thought that was such an interesting lyric to pull from. The text painting on Shapeshifter was so cool to see. There's a lyric about speeding up her pulse as the production increases and it becomes more and more fast paced. And then I believe this is on the second chorus on the song where she ends the chorus by saying, "I just want to fall." As she says the word fall, all of the production drops out and you're only left with her. I love text painting because it's such an interesting way of bridging together the written quality with the audible quality of music, and that is something I'm always going to be a sucker for. Clear Blue, a song that I actually like a lot more than I think most people online I'm seeing do. It kind of feels like an interlude, but it isn't really an interlude. It's under 2 minutes and it's just Lorde with a heavy ass vocoder effect drowning out her vocals, and it just sounds so robotic and rusty. But the opening lyric being, "After the ecstasy, testing for pregnancy, praying in MP3, mic drop, baby." Broken Glass is one of the more pop forward songs. It has a much clearer cut, like traditional pop music, pop radio melody here. More traditional verse chorus song structure on this one too. Super vulnerable songwriting. When she gets into her upper register towards the end of the chorus, it is piercing. I liked how this one production wise was a little bit more flirty, a little bit more glitzy and glamorous than the others, and I guess that's kind of reflecting how shiny and weirdly pretty I think Broken Glass can be. But the other two songs that wrap up my top 3 with Hammer are the last 2 songs on this project, If She Could See Me Now and David. Actually, I already said David. I already said David was my favorite, right? Yeah, I did it. So now you know my top 3. Hammer, If She Could See Me Now, and David. If She Could See Me Now, the Suga Suga interpolation, I lost it when I first heard this, but I also think that this is one of those more pop-leaning songs, but it does a better job in my eyes than Broken Glass of bridging together the industrial rough as nails part of Virgin with a more pop-friendly production. And I like the idea of like, if she could see me now, if my old self could see where I am today, that self-growth, that self-discovery song, but it's not done in a corny way, which I really respected. And then David. David is the masterpiece of this album. I wasn't sure if this song was named David after somebody she knows personally, or if it's reflecting the David vs. Goliath story about being the underdog, about pushing forward and overcoming this huge looming threat. And that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. But I also love how the song starts off in this very beautiful, like you're casually resting on some calm, serene water. Like you're in the middle of a lake in a boat, but you're all by yourself and the water could not be more still if it tried. And then out of nowhere, the song just completely dissolves into itself with this glitchy, broken production that just distorts into oblivion at the end of it before returning back to that serenity. And this is one of those songs where the production just takes you on a journey. It takes you on a freaking roller coaster to heaven. Like it was an insane first listen, and it gave me the kind of chills that I got when I first heard a song like Billie Eilish is Happier Than Ever for the first time, how shocked you are by the way the song transforms into something else. That was David for me. So ultimately where I'm at with this album, I'm a huge fan of this project. This will definitely be one of my albums of the year. I can't say whether or not this was a big step forward for Lorde. It feels more like a return to form than a step forward, for lack of better word, just because it is similar in soundscape to Melodrama and Pure Heroin. It's back to the Lorde that we've known and loved. I do think that it does an amazing job of taking what you would not expect from this A-list pop star, who's way more elusive, way more private, but putting all of her stress and anxiety and vulnerability on the table for everyone to see and witness is really inspiring as a fan of Lorde, as a fan of pop music. So you're probably wondering, where are you ranking this album? What score are you giving it? How is it ranking with Lorde's other albums? I'm leaning right now towards an 8 out of 10 on Virgin. I think it may come between like a 7.5 and an 8. And in terms of album ranking for me, Melodrama is still number 1, followed by Virgin, number 2. Number 3 would be Pure Heroin, and 4 is Solar Power. But those are just my thoughts on Virgin. I really want to know what you guys are thinking about this album, because I think there is so much to dive into. The lyrics here are so incredibly dense and heavy that we're going to be dissecting this one for a bit. So please sound off in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are on Virgin, and let's get to the rest of our New Music Friday recommendations. The next song I want to recommend to you guys is a song that I was not at all expecting to recommend. It's Jessie Murph's new song, Heroin. So in case you're not familiar with Jessie, she is an up-and-coming blend artist of country music meets trap and hip-hop. It's two worlds you wouldn't necessarily see merging together, but Jessie is kind of an interesting character, and she has a very unique vocal tone. You may be familiar with Jessie's song Blue Strips, which has gone so viral and has been performing very well on the Billboard Hot 100. And this song is more into like the Lana Del Rey side of her artistry. You could totally see Lana playing on a song like this. It's borderline hypnotic and kind of like you're in a trance listening to it in a beautiful way. The song itself feels dramatic at times, but it's nicely grounded in who Jessie Murph is as an artist. And when I first heard Blue Strips, I was like, who the hell is this? What is this song? And it stayed stuck in my head and it would not go away. And I'm kind of coming around to it. And Heroin, it's continuing in the right direction for me. So I'll say that. Here's a quick snippet of it so you can give it a listen yourself.
Like heroin that broke my baby bliss. You look at me, I look at you. You kill me slow, I get you through.
And then the last song I want to talk about for today is off of the new F1 The Album soundtrack. So the F1 movie came out on Friday. The soundtrack dropped as well. It is loaded. On this album, you have Don Toliver and Doja Cat, Dom Dolla, Ed Sheeran, Tate McRae, Rose, Burna Boy, Roddy Ricch, RAYE, and also worked with Mark Ronson, Chris Stapleton, Tiesto, Sexy Red, Madison Beer, Peggy Gou, and many, many more. And I like the fact that we're back in a world where music and movie soundtracks are coming together and becoming proper events again. You really saw this take off with the Barbie soundtrack, but it had kind of been quiet for a bit. And I remember growing up and having these movie soundtracks be really big cultural events, and you saw that with like the Great Gatsby soundtrack. There's something about assembling the Avengers of music in a way to come together for a movie soundtrack that just will always make me smile. So this soundtrack is pretty solid, I'm not gonna lie. The Madison Beer song reminds me a lot of what she's been doing with 15 Minutes, Make You Mine, still in that EDM pop lane. Tate McRae's Just Keep Watching, I like that one a lot. It reminds me a lot of what she's doing right now. I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if this song was written for one of her albums and they didn't end up using it, so they put it on the soundtrack. I think that actually may be what happened. Someone commented once, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard. And then the song that I want to recommend to you guys today is the new RAYE song.
What your daddy said I could do better. Do better. What your grandma do? What she do? She will get on her knees and pray that I don't make this mistake. Grandma calls the boy bad news.
It is called Grandma Calls the Boys Bad News, and this is now RAYE's second song with Mark Ronson. Mark Ronson, huge writer, huge producer. He worked a ton with Amy Winehouse behind Back to Black. Their song that they put out a few weeks ago called Suzanne is very, very much in that like nostalgic bag. It reminds me a ton of what Amy used to do. And RAYE is an artist who I will obsess over. I think RAYE vocally is one of the best voices we have out here right now. I don't know why she doesn't get more attention. Her voice is unfucking believable how good it is. The notes that she can hit, the timbre of her voice is just so rich, and she's an interesting middle ground between Amy Winehouse, Adele. I'm not just saying that because she's British, but there's just something about her voice that I could listen to her sing anything. And in fact, I would kill to have an entire collab album between RAYE and Mark Ronson. I think there's so much to unlock here with the two of them coming together between Suzanne and Grandma Calls the Boys Bad News. The production feels a little Motowny. It feels a little Valerie by Amy Winehouse. It feels nostalgic in the best way without going too far back in the past that you lose a sense of her own artistry here. This musical duo is a duo that I want to keep seeing a ton more of. So props to the F1 soundtrack for grabbing this song. And that is my new Music Friday highlights of this week. Again, if you are not following the playlist on Spotify, Life on Mars, you can go check out these songs and plenty more that I went through this week to find for you guys. And let's get into the music news of the week. All right, so 5 music news stories for this week that I want to run you guys through. The first of which is Glastonbury, which is happening right now as I'm speaking. Olivia Rodrigo is performing, but there are a few highlights to come out of the performances we've already seen from Glastonbury, and these are a few of them. Charli XCX burning down the Brat curtain, literally engulfing it in flames. So if you're not familiar with Charli and what she's been doing with the Brat tour and this curtain, the album artwork, we all know it at this point. Ugly, offensive shade of green with a simple text that just says Brat. And at every one of these shows, the Brat curtain is there and she rips it down. And from the beginning, the curtain was there with the green and the text, and that was it. But then it got scratched out and scribbled over to kind of remove the Brat name from it, like Brat was closing out. Then the curtain started to rot, kind of looking like a rotten apple where the bottom of it was starting to decay. Then it became shredded and there were tears in it and huge rips, and eventually looking like a old used like rag that you would have it in your home to clean up around the apartment. Just destroyed, disheveled, gross looking. But now she lit it on fire, and the big question is this signaling the official end of Brat summer, of the Brat era? And the answer to that is surprising no, it's not. Charli has said time and time again that Brat is forever, and I love that for her. The renaissance that Charli XCX has had because of Brat, not only the success on the Brat album and the remix album and the deluxe edition of the album, but also on Party For You, From How I'm Feeling Now, 5 years ago, becoming a Billboard hit. Potentially the song of the summer. It's insane. And while Charli may be working on new music and is likely going to put something new out within the next year, there's obviously a ton of pressure on Charli XCX to figure out what this next step is going to be in her discography because of how monumental and impactful Brat has been. And with that being the first album that really gained this monoculture kind of prevalence, it's kind of, in my eyes and many others, her debut in quotes album. And even though this is very much not her debut album, it kind of feels like it from a public perception perspective that whatever she does next is kind of being looked at as her sophomore album. And the sophomore album comes with a lot of legs. It's been discussed for decades in music how important a sophomore album is because it gives you the opportunity as an artist to show off that, hey, what was successful the first time wasn't a fluke. I can continue to be successful, putting out music that people love, having this commercial impact, etc. So on top of all the pressure that Charli already had, there's even more now because of how successful Brat was. If there's anybody who can figure out how to not replicate the success of Brat, but build upon it and expand it into something new and exciting and rich, it is Charli XCX. So I'm not worried by any means. I did see a report online today, and I don't know if it's officially confirmed or not, that Jack Antonoff may be executive producing her next record. I heard this was coming from Hits Daily Double on Twitter, but I tried looking on the site and couldn't find the news myself, so we'll see if that actually ends up being true. I know a lot of you are going to have very strong opinions about Jack being involved in another Pop Girls project, but you know, he's created some absolute masterpieces, so let's give him a chance, is my mentality. That's Charli at Glastonbury. We're going to move a little bit over to her fiance. Her fiance is a part of the 1975 band, and the 1975 performed their first show since March 2024 at Glastonbury, and Matty Healy, the lead, was doing the Matty Healy thing and just being kind of an asshole, but also kind of hysterical in another annoying way. It's messy. You know why? Because Matty Healy is back. So there were a few jabs that Matty Healy seemed to be taking at his former girlfriend Taylor Swift. The first jab came while he was taking a breather between performing part of the band and Chocolate. He said, quote, "I'm probably the best songwriter of my generation. A poet, ladies and gentlemen, is what I am. A generational wordsmith." To directly mention the word poet seems very pointed at Taylor Swift, with the Tortured Poets department largely being about her relationship and breakup and post-breakup with Matty Healy. And the second jab was him wearing a pin of Peter Pan. And if you've listened to the full anthology version of the Tortured Poets department, there's a song called Peter, which is about Peter Pan and the lost boy who never wanted to grow up. He seems to be just completely owning that character, which, like, props to him to have the confidence to do it, knowing that this backlash would happen. But that's Matty Healy for you. He's never been one to shy away from controversy. Something actually funny that I liked a lot is while performing, the lyrics were displayed on screen, and it was kind of trolling himself for not enunciating any of his lyrics. So the lyrics being displayed were just completely gibberish, which I really thought was hysterical. And that's where I always feel a little torn on sharing this part of my music taste with everybody online, because Taylor fans are Taylor fans, and a lot of people are ride or die Taylor and feel incredibly passionate about defending her against any ex-boyfriend or anyone in the industry who has had to say something negative about her. And before Taylor and Matty Healy were ever a couple, I was a fan of the 1975. I love a lot of their music. Their last album, Being Funny in a Foreign Language, was one of my favorites of 2022 and 2023, since it kind of came out at the tail end of 22. Some of their songs are in my top 100 songs of all time list. You have a song like Somebody Else, masterpiece. And I also never really talk about this, but I am also a big John Mayer fan. I love listening to his records on my record player, and there's just something about throwing on a John Mayer song in the middle of summer, especially sob rock. I'm such a sucker for sob rock, but you know, I don't really talk about it so much because some Taylor fans will come for my head with that take. But Matty Healy is a little bit more of a controversial figure in the things that he says, the statements he makes, and it's hard. I very much do not agree with a lot of the things that he does or says. The music I enjoy, it's hard to sometimes draw a line between the artist and what they stand for, so that's always a constant work in progress. But yeah, I mean, the fact that it seemed like this show went off incredibly well. I saw tweets all over the place praising the show, how great it was to have the 1975 back, how they're likely going to put new music out coming soon. So we'll stay tuned for more there, but that was them at Glastonbury. The third one is a little bit more of an emotional story. It's actually Lewis Capaldi, and he made a triumphant return to the stage at Glastonbury for his first performance in 2 years. He last played Glastonbury in 2023 after he was diagnosed with Tourette's the year before, and he was on stage and had a very emotional response and was triggered by a lot of these very intense tics that you get having Tourette's, and he didn't perform again for 2 years. He revealed to the crowd he wasn't sure if he'd ever be able to return to the stage again. So it was a very emotional moment. If you haven't already watched his performance of Someone You Loved, highly recommend you do so. He has one of those voices that is just so rich and soulful and feels like it's lived a million lives. And, you know, I've never been a huge fan of going through his actual projects, but when I hear his songs come on, it's always one that just punches you right in the guts. Definitely recommend checking that one out. So that is our Glastonbury recap for right now, but it's going to naturally lead us into talking about Olivia Rodrigo, who's performing right now as we speak at Glastonbury. Is Olivia Rodrigo preparing to release her third album? There's been a lot of rumors recently about what potential album titles could be, what kind of Easter eggs she's dropping, so let's talk about it. If you're familiar with Olivia's discography, her first album, Sour, and her second album, Guts came out in September 2023, so we're starting to get towards that 2-year mark, and that's the time separation between Sour and Guts was 2 years. She's been on tour what seems like forever between the Guts tour and this run of festivals that she's playing at. The color associated with both Sour and Guts has been purple, but she's been wearing a lot of red. Her guitars have been red. She's been posting a lot of red lipstick, red costumes throughout the tour. Red is likely going to be the color of whatever this third album is. And Olivia has said that she likes to have album titles that have 4 letters. They're short and punchy, the way that Sour and Guts both have multiple meanings as well. It's likely that the third album title is going to also have 4 letters and also have a few different meanings. Some rumors I'm seeing right now online are arch, which could throw into like arching your back and archer. And then there's also luck. Obviously, luck has a ton of different ways you can play into it. And the question on my mind is, where is she going to go musically? Because what she showed between Sour and Guts, that musical evolution and that maturity was so profound. Guts, for me, was a huge step up from Sour. I think Sour is one of the best debut albums we've had this decade. It's incredibly well written. It's amazingly impactful. The numbers on this album are insane. The streaming numbers, the sales certifications, it's wild. Guts didn't have that same outright success, but I feel like Olivia sharpened her pencil on every single one of the songs on Guts from its Sour predecessors, where the angsty, more pop rock leaning moments on Sour, like Brutal and Good For You, were amplified to the next level on Guts. Bad Idea Right, Ballad of a Homeschool Girl. You then have Driver's License to Vampire. You then have the more ballad-focused moments on Sour, like Enough For You, Happier, Favorite Crime, being taken to the next level with a song like Lacey or Teenage Dream. You saw a true artistic evolution in the works. And what I'm really interested in right now is Olivia has made it so clear that the diversity of artists in which she is inspired by is so wide that she really could go in so many different directions for this next project. I think at the core of it is going to be a continuation of the sounds we already know. Your Vampire, your Driver's License, your Deja Vu. But then on Guts, you got a moment like Pretty Isn't Pretty, felt like a very Shania Twain, Sheryl Crow kind of summer song. I think what you're going to get on this next new album is, again, maintaining that same core voice, the same core that she's been really maturing with each record, but then the oddball random choices she's going to throw in are going to be really oddball and really random to show that she's not messing around when it comes to her sense of artistry. She's willing to take a bold creative risk. She's willing to try something new, a little bit more experimental, avant-garde. And that's what I'm really hoping to get from whatever this third album is going to be, because after 3 albums of getting a very similar presentation each go around, it could get a little stale. And I don't think Olivia is an artist who would ever want to play it safe or to play in a stale playing ground. She is an artist who I truly believe will be around for a very long time, that there's there's going to be a sense of movement, a sense of maturity as she is now in her 20s and is living more life and is in love in a relationship. So I'm excited to see what we get. So that is what I'm hoping for from OR3 right now. We have zero clue when it's coming. There's no real indication that it is coming. This is all just rumors and hearsay, but I'm here for the say. Number 3 is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift this past week performed live for the first time after the Eras Tour. Taylor joined Travis at Tight End University, which is kind of like a football training tight end boot camp, and they had a concert to celebrate the event called Tight End and Friends. Kane Brown was performing, and Taylor was there to support Travis and to support Kane. She was up there in the VIP section. Girl is drinking up her vodka cranberries, probably 2 or 3 deep at this point in the night, having a damn good time, and she decides, hey, I'm going to perform. I'm going to teach the band how to play Shake It Off with 3 minutes notice and write on a sheet of paper the chords they need to know how to play Shake It Off. And she takes the stage, a little bit buzzed, maybe tipsy, to perform Shake It Off, and it was just unreal. Imagine being one of the however many people were in that room, 500, 1,000 at most maybe, to see Taylor Swift perform live. Like, that kind of intimate venue is what I dream of having from Taylor one day, and it's just probably never going to happen because how the hell are you going to get tickets to that? It's just so sick to imagine being in that room, to be one of the 500 or so people who's witnessing this performance. It all happened so spur of the moment. She borrowed Chase Rice's guitar, another country singer. Taylor has always hysterically said that Shake It Off is like the easiest song to play because it's the same few chords repeated over and over again. So I'm thinking to myself, if she's a little tipsy drunk but she wants to perform, what song is she going to play? It's not going to be a Cornelia Street or All Too Well 10-minute version. Girl is going to play Shake It Off because it's a crowd pleaser and it is easy to do. Granted, I should not be saying that because I don't play a single ounce of guitar, but that's Taylor's words. And I just hope it inspires her to return to these kind of stages where they can be a little bit more intimate, because ultimately that's where you really get to feel that artist-fan connection. So that is just a little fever dream of mine that I'm going to put in my back pocket. Number 4 this week goes to Beyoncé and her 16 Carriages performance in Houston. Beyoncé's floating car tipped over while she was performing 16 Carriages in Houston as part of the Cowboy Carter tour. This is the final performance of the night where Beyoncé is sitting nice and pretty in this car and circles around the entire stadium performing this one. And there was some technical difficulty where the strings holding up the car were uneven and the car literally went sideways. Beyoncé, being the masterclass and the absolute pro that she is, would never even know that she was fazed about possibly falling tens of feet to the ground. And after performing the chorus of the song, she called for it to stop and just kind of hung there, floating in midair, sideways tilted, and safely came to a landing and nothing was wrong. But the pictures and the video from this are unreal. I am curious to see if we will see the floating car come around again. Pretty potentially horrifying experience. Not only Beyoncé falling, but the car falling and landing on people below. Like, there's a lot of liability there. So glad that Beyoncé, Queen Bee, is okay. Our last music news story of this week goes to Sabrina Carpenter and her upcoming record, Man's Best Friend Again. I don't remember if I've talked about it on the podcast or not yet. I'm pretty sure I have, but I've spoken about it ad nauseum over on TikTok and Instagram. So again, if you're not following, go check those out. Sabrina announced her new album, Man's Best Friend. It's dropping August 29th. And there was so much backlash to this album cover because it shows Sabrina in a relatively compromised position. She's on her knees. A man presumably is pulling her hair. And people were very, very unhappy with this album cover, that it was playing directly into the male gaze. People are trying to reanalyze Sabrina's entire career to show that she's always been playing to the male gaze. And this is gaze, G-A-Z-E, not G-A-Y-S. I think it's kind of absurd. I understand why people are upset. I think the visual is a little bit alarming if you are more conservative and have young children. It's a little bit promiscuous of a pose to be in, and to have that be your album cover is a big, bold statement. I personally don't have an issue with the cover. I personally have an issue with the fact that this is the album cover, just in the sense of, like, I don't think it's a good photo. It's a little bit blurred and the lighting seems a little bit off. There's like a pinkish kind of hue to everything. It doesn't necessarily look like a photo that would be an album cover. But granted, who is to say what an album cover is in 2025, because you have something like Brat, and then you have some of these awful AI-generated album covers too. So regardless, it was going to make a of noise because people were very upset about it, and Sabrina has never been one to shy away from controversy, except in this situation she didn't really say anything until she posted a new alt cover of the album up on her web store with a vinyl variant attached to it, and the way that she announced this new alt cover was hysterical. She posted the photo of this new album cover, which is a black and white shot showing her paying homage to Marilyn Monroe. There's a famous shot of Marilyn Monroe hugging someone from behind, and Sabrina directly replicated this shot, very much in this Hollywood glamour kind of aesthetic that she's been playing with for years now. It's the way that she introduced this album cover that has me dying. She made sure to make it clear when announcing this new album cover that this one is approved by God. And you can just imagine the wink that she's throwing through the screen. Hysterical. This is why Sabrina is a master music marketer. She knew this was going to make a ton of noise. People are going to be talking about the album. And now if you're out and about, or you're on streaming services and see this album cover, you're going to know exactly what it is, and that is the power of marketing. But it also makes me even more serious when I say that when Sabrina has an off period between projects, which she's going straight from Short and Sweet into this new era, that's a whole other conversation if she should have taken a break. But if she ever wanted to become a comedian doing stand-up, she would sell out every single house she plays. This girl is hysterical, and there is no other album like Short and Sweet where I sat here. My full reaction is on YouTube to this one. I think it was actually the very first reaction video I ever made. I was cracking up, tears of laughter from how funny these lyrics are. And you get that again in the new single Man Child, and you're gonna get it on this new album as well. She is way smarter than people give her credit for. So I'm excited to hear this new album. I do have some reservations about musically what direction it's headed in, because Man Child feels like a natural through line into Short and Sweet with like Please Please Please. Part of me is a little nervous that because she isn't taking an actual break between projects the way that maybe Olivia does, or Lorde is taking 4 years between projects to live a little bit more of life, to see where her music taste evolves and changes, who she's inspired by, and use all of that to create this new album. She's putting out this new album almost exactly a year after Short and Sweet dropped, but I just talked all about how Sabrina is a master music marketer and knows exactly what she's doing, so I should have a little bit more confidence in the sound direction of Man's Best Friend. And that is our music news recap of the week, and that closes out another episode of Live from Mars. This one I wanted to focus more on just here are the new Music Friday highlights, here is my review of the Lorde album, here is the music news of the week, just because so much happened that the deep dive was going to be the deep dive I gave into the Lorde album anyway. So kind of combined two things here, but hope you guys enjoyed this one. A few key reminders before we head out. If you are interested in seeing that full reaction to every song on Virgin, make sure you check out my YouTube channel. And if you want the full unedited versions, if we can figure out a place where that can live, whether it's a Patreon, a Substack, somewhere I can post this without things getting taken down, let me know what your thoughts are on that. Follow the Life on Mars playlist on Spotify for all of this week's new Music Friday finds. If you've been enjoying Live from Mars and enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you left a review of the podcast, gave it a rating as well. And that is our show for the week. I will see you all again soon for another new episode of Live from Mars. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great week.